In today's video, we will educate you on some chess tactics that will improve your chess game. We will start with counter threat. A counter threat is a move that seemingly ignores your opponent's threat, since you believe you can make an even stronger threat. It is a powerful tactic that can be used to turn the tables on your opponent and gain the upper hand. For example, let us say that white is playing against black, and black has just played the bishop to b4, attacking the rook. White could respond with a queen to c4, which threatens both the king and the bishop, but does not address the threat to the rook. Black would now have to decide whether to defend the king or the bishop, and either way, white would be in a good position. Black can only protect his king. White takes his bishop. Counter threats can be used in all phases of the game, but they are especially powerful in the middle game. This is because the middle game is often characterized by open lines and active pieces, which makes it easier to create and execute counter threats. Here are some tips for using counter threats effectively. Be aware of your opponent's threats. The first step to using a counter threat is to identify your opponent's threats. Once you know what your opponent is threatening, you can start to think about how you can respond. Don't be afraid to ignore your opponent's threats. Sometimes the best way to deal with a threat is to ignore it and make a counter threat of your own. This can be a risky move, but it can also be very effective. Be prepared to defend your own pieces. When you make a counter threat, you are opening up your own pieces to attack. Make sure that you are prepared to defend your pieces if your opponent responds. Counter threats are a powerful tactic that can be used to gain the upper hand in chess. By understanding how to use counter threats effectively, you can improve your chances of winning your next game. Cross-check. A cross-check occurs when a player blocks a check against their king, and in the process, checks the opponent's king. For example, let's say that white is playing against black, and white has just played queen to e7, putting the black king on check. Black could respond with bishop moving to f7, which defends the king, also delivers a check to white's king. Which means that, after the king gets out of check, black will lose the hanging rook on b6. And either way, black would be in a good position. Cross-checks are a powerful tactic that can be used to gain the upper hand in chess. They are especially useful in endgames, where the number of pieces on the board is limited, and there are fewer opportunities to create other types of tactical opportunities. To apply cross-checks effectively, you have to be aware of your opponent's checks. The first step to using a cross-check is to identify your opponent's checks. Once you know what your opponent is checking, you can start to think about how you can respond. Don't be afraid to block your opponent's checks. Sometimes the best way to deal with a check is to block it with a piece of your own. This can open up lines for your pieces, and it can also put your opponent in a difficult position. Be prepared to deliver your own checks. When you use a cross-check, you are also opening up your own king to attack. Make sure that you are prepared to defend your king if your opponent responds. Cross-checks are a powerful tactic that can be used to gain the upper hand in chess. By understanding how to use cross-checks effectively, you can improve your chances of beating your opponents. In chess, a decoy tactic is a move that draws an adversary piece away from its square and away from its defensive function. Typically, this means away from a square on which another piece or threat is defending. The strategy is also known as a deflection. Consider a rat trap. It has delicious cheese to entice an unwary rat. Once inside, the gate snaps shut, trapping the poor rat. Decoys function in the same way. You lure a piece to a specific square, where you set a trap for it. For example, if the knight on c3 takes the pawn on b5. If the pawn on a6 captures the knight, black falls into a decoy trap. Because white will move the rook to attack the king in order to capture black rook, when black moves the king to safety, white takes the rook on h8. Decoys are a powerful tactic that can be used to gain the upper hand in chess. They are especially useful in the middle game, where the number of pieces on the board is limited, and there are fewer opportunities to create other types of tactical opportunities. Be aware of your opponent's threats. The first step to using a decoy is to identify your opponent's threats. Once you know what your opponent is planning, you can start to think about how you can use a decoy to your advantage. Don't be afraid to sacrifice material. Sometimes the best way to use a decoy is to sacrifice a piece. This can open up lines for your pieces, and it can also put your opponent in a difficult position. Be prepared to follow up. When you use a decoy, you need to be prepared to follow up with a strong move. If you don't, your opponent may be able to take advantage of the situation. Deflection is a method of getting rid of a defender. By capturing another piece the defender is protecting, you have deflected a defensive piece. Following the exchange, you will be able to capitalize on the newly weakened square. For example, on the chessboard, white captures the rook on e8 with the idea to deflect the black knight on f6, so that it does not defend the d7 square anymore. If knight takes the white rook, white will now advance to d7, which puts the king on check, with the aim of capturing bishop on b7. Deflection tactics are a powerful way to gain the upper hand in chess. By understanding how to use deflection tactics effectively, you can improve your chances of winning your next game. Do not forget to subscribe since we have a lot of chess tactics, additional chess techniques, and lessons planned. Thanks for watching.